dance for joy or lust or anger.
Welcome to Sensible Secondhand Classics, the show where we look at practical, nostalgic cars that are over 15 years old that you can buy between a budget of £1,000 and £5,000. This is a 1983 Saab 900 GL, and is it any good? Should you care? Let's find out, shall we? So the Saab 900 was a development of the earliest Saab 99 that had come out in the late 1960s. It used a later version of the engine that had been in the 99, which was originally a Triumph slant 4 engine that we've had in a couple of cars on the channel already. Saab actually were the first people to use this engine. It was originally a 1.7 litre, and then the 1.85 was released a little bit later, around the time that the Triumph Dolomite 1850 came out in about 1971. Later on, it became the Saab B engine. I think that was in 1972, and it was a 2 litre. Now it's completely different from the Triumph Dolomite Sprint engine. It's absolutely got nothing in common with that whatsoever, apart from the same basic design. So the Saab B engine was actually still used in cars when the Saab 900 was launched in 1978. In 1981, the B engine was actually changed for what's called the H engine, which is in this car. The H engine actually lasted for a really, really long time. It was actually in Saabs until about 2010, I think, the Saab 9.5. This particular H engine, this air freshener is going to be annoying, isn't it? Put it back there. This particular H engine develops about 99 horsepower, and it's coupled to a 4-speed manual. This car's actually only got it's only got a single carb on it. This is the 8-valve version of the H engine. There was actually also a 16-valve version of this engine, which came in a little bit later on. That engine started to appear about 1984. There were various power outputs. The one in this car is known as the B201 engine. The 16 valve is called the B202. It's very confusing. The H engine actually has a B code, which I don't really understand. But, you know, there we go. Maybe people who are into Saabs can tell me why that is. I don't really think that there's a lot of difference in terms of the power output of the original B engine that would have been in the very early 900s in this sort of lowly spec in comparison with this later H engine. I think that both of the sort of single carb engines in the 900s produce about 100 horsepower. There's also a twin carb version of this engine, which was in the GLS, and that developed a little bit more power, about 180 horsepower. There was also a fuel injected version of this engine, and that developed 116 horsepower. But the ones you want to hear about are the turbocharged versions, and there were 2 turbocharged 8-valve H engines in the 900. There was one without an intercooler, about 145 horsepower. I think that was the same as the 99 turbo. And then one with an intercooler that was 155 horsepower. We'll look at the 16-valve engines a bit later, because it gets a bit complicated with those. The 900 was a development of the 99, as I've mentioned before, but it had a completely different front and rear end. Weirdly, and this seemed the same for Volvos as well at the time, the 2 models were sold side by side for some considerable time. The 99 wasn't discontinued until 1984, and actually between 1978 and 1980 The 96, 99 and 900 were all sold together. In 1980 this saloon body style was launched. Up until then it had been exclusively on the 99. And the 96 was discontinued at that particular moment. In 84, when the 9000 was released, which did share some of the engines from the 900, they discontinued the 99 and actually replaced that with the 90, which was the front end of the Saab 99 and the rear end of a Saab 900. That was supposedly to get costs down a bit. It's very strange because the 99 was actually more expensive to build than the 900. I don't really understand that, but there we go. The 90 only was available with a single body style, a 2-door saloon, and only with this engine, this 99 horsepower, 2-litre, 8-valve with the single carb. By 87, I think they'd sort of realised that they didn't really need to market something like that anymore, and you know, the 900 and 9000 would cater for most Saab customers, so it was finally discontinued. As for this one, well, it was discontinued in 1993. That's after, you know, things like the turbo models had changed for 16-valve, and also the convertible had come in 1986. Don't know why, whenever I come to this area to film cars, it always seems to be raining. This 900 is owned by Andreas, who's Morris Varney. You might have seen on my channel. It was filmed in exactly the same place. It's funny, this car, it's a base model for the time. 4-door saloon with beige on beige. It's got pinstriping. It's only got a 4-speed manual. And it is sort of glorious. It's even got the original hubcaps on it. The chap who owned it for many, many years was an older gentleman. You can see straight away that this car really was designed first and foremost for safety. You can see the massive bumpers on this. I'm sure they met American crash regulations for many, many years. Bit of a timeless design. I mean, this car's roots date back to around, I think, 67 when the 99 came out. Might be wrong about that actually, it might have been a little bit later, but a design which lasted a really, really long time, about 25 years if you count the 90, 99 and 900. When it was replaced in 1993, there'd been an awful lot of changes to it from, you know, the original that came out in 78, and the car that replaced it, we've had a couple of those on the channel actually. Both I think were 9.3s, which is the later version of the new generation 900, both based on the same platform as the Vauxhall Cavalier. Although a lot of them did have the Saab H engines in them mounted transversely. This engine is actually mounted longitudinally, of course, with front wheel drive, and the handbrake is on the front wheels. So yeah, just very distinctive old style Saab, and this company sadly no longer with us. That you know, I somehow wish myself and many others do that they were still around. So I've got original dealer stick on the back of here. Big boot on this car, bigger than one of the 99 and the one of the 99. The 90 had the same rear end. It was a front end that was shared with the 99, wasn't it? So I hope that boot's not going to fall on me. No, it's not. Can we open up this and have a look? Yes, we can. There we go. Yes, there we go. Fantastic spare wheel and a couple of other things. This car is a bit of a worker in progress. It's not quite running right at the moment. You might have seen in the video earlier on, but the headlining is sagging. It is really sagging. Unfortunately, but it's just the way it is. A lot of older cars like this. But the bodywork's not in too bad condition. One of the classic places that these cars actually rust is around the wheel arches, and you can kind of see, particularly on the front ones, that that's happening. There's also a bit of rust, I think, on the side of some of these doors. Yeah, it's not actually that bad on this car. It's pretty solid, to be honest. It came with an MOT with no advisories when Andreas bought this, and I think that's sort of towards the end of last year. But it's actually, in terms of a car that's it's the same age as I am, registered early 83, but made in 82. Is actually in not bad condition, and a lot of you will like this sort of beige on beige action. I think it's interesting anyway. So we'll just get in quickly, hopefully nobody's coming down this very quiet road. It's funny how the seat belts are still not really kind of where you'd expect them to be. You thought the reel would go a bit further down, but there we go. And we haven't got any seat belts in the back at all. We've got this crazy headlining that's all collapsed, and you know, evidence of this car having been in storage. It needs a new headlining, it needs sort of here, but the seats aren't actually in bad condition at all. Just the GL, so we don't have anything like electric windows. We've got manual windows all round, and they are odd looking window winders as well. Yeah, it's pretty comfortable. It's a lot more spacious than I'd say a contemporary BMW 3 Series would be. And one of the things I've always been trying to work out is exactly how these cars were positioned. So the interior space is similar to a Volvo 240, but this is, I think, a smaller car than the 240. In terms of the 9000, which came into production a couple of years after this car was made, it's actually a larger car than the 9000, but the interior volume is less, if that makes sense. And of course you've got some headlamp wiper action, which you know, fans of certain channels would like. You've also got wipers which park over there, but you know, we're not really focused on wipers on this channel, are we? Because we're focused on beige leather interior, which this car does not have. It's got a beige cloth interior. So, because it's just for GL, we don't even get a rev counter. You just get a clock. Just shut this door. Oh, there we go. That feels solid, doesn't it? So, one thing you'll notice straight away is the ignition switch is down here, and you can only get the key out if the gearbox is in reverse. I think if on an auto, you just put it in park, but that's been a Saab trait for absolutely ages. I think the handbrake went on to the rear wheels later on the life of the car. I've also got no front anti-roll bars on this car at all. I think those came in a little bit later than this model, and we haven't got an economy meter. I think those came in later on in 1983. So a very simple dashboard in here. I might use that when I'm driving later on, because it was starting to steam up and, you know, in the car earlier on. Let's see if my secret mission documents go in the glove box. I can see straight away that they're not going to, but we'll try anyway for aesthetic purposes. No is the answer to that, viewers. Can I even get them as side door pockets? It doesn't. It looks really difficult. Yes, I can. This is sort of like elasticated, so I can. Bonnet releases on that side. It opens in a really weird way, and unfortunately, I'm not really going to be able to demonstrate it just on my own, because it needs two hands to open and close the bonnet. So just a normal fuel gauge, reheated window, hazard light switches just there. The quality of the interior for something from 1983 is very, very good. Obviously we've got blanking plates and things like that. I wish I had a rev counter in here, viewers, and if you have the turbo model, of course you've got a turbo gauge here as well. Very simple steering wheel. I don't think these got airbags until right at the end. I think 92, maybe 93, they got airbags. And things like ABS came later as well, but we haven't got anything like that in here. But yeah, everything is really simple. In comparison with a lot of cars of this age, particularly when you think about the basic age of this design, dating back to the 1960s, all the controls are nice and high up. The radio's high up, obviously this is an aftermarket one. Heating ventilation right at the top of here. You don't need to take your eyes off the road, which in comparison with so many modern cars where you need to use fiddly touchscreens to operate the heating and ventilation and the infotainment system, it's just a model of clarity. Black panel and things like that came along later on, night panel. Does it feel like an aircraft cockpit? I don't really know. I don't think so. But obviously Saab and Scania being one company at the time and making the planes, that's something they wanted to do at the time to, I suppose, make people think that they were a bit more of a sophisticated company than maybe they were. I don't know. Indicators on this side. There's the wipers and the light switch. It's all very, very simple and easy to understand. No electric mirrors, of course. You could get a 5-speed manual in other cars. Obviously, this is the GL, so we've only got a 4-speed. I think all cars got 5 speeds a little bit later on than this one. Right, let's have a look under this unusual bonnet, shall we? Here we are, viewers. The Saab H engine. H stands for high compression with the B201 code. Just a single carburettor, which you can see here. This car's not quite running right, so it's made some noises on the way here and I've struggled a little to drive it. That might be why. Also, there's something wrong with the clutch in this. I don't know exactly what it is. Apparently it's a common problem with them, and every time you press the clutch it makes a really horrible noise. Apparently that's okay, it's not too much of an issue. But yeah, it's in pretty good condition for a car that's the same age as I am. It's worn better than I have. The engine actually is almost transmission in sump, but not quite. You can see actually that this has a separate sump on it, and the gearbox oil is just kind of there. The engine's actually the other way around from most engines. You can see the distributor's actually on that side, which is very, very unusual. The gearbox is kind of slung right at the front. It's underneath the engine and at the front, but it has a separate sump, so it doesn't actually share the same oil, unlike something like, I don't know, a Mini, something like that. And the oil is on this side. So very, very unusual layout. Not many cars, I don't think, are like this. If you had a front-wheel drive Audi, for example, I don't know, an 80s Audi 80, similar thing, longitudinally mounted front-wheel drive, but that engine is actually the other way around. So I don't know if that gives you better access, or I'm not sure really. Slanted over like the old Triumph Slant 4 was. Obviously this engine is related to that, and quite a lot of good access. I think all the 900s in this country had a 2-litre engine. There was a 2.1 available sort of near the end, but I couldn't find out for definite whether the 2.1 was actually sold over here. Maybe some of you could tell me in the comment section below. I'm not as much of an expert on Saabs as I am on some other cars. I think they're interesting, I just don't know an awful lot about them really. But yeah, there we go. All the fuses are down there and everything. I think we will close that bonnet. That's also an interesting procedure. Again, I can't actually show you because it's just me on my own. I need 2 hands to close it, so we will do that, and we will go for another drive, viewers. Okay, viewers, let's take this car back to where it lives. One thing I really appreciate about this car, although it's a base model, it does have power steering. And I imagine without power steering, things like the 99 and the 90 were a bit of a handful. One really weird change that they made to this car was the really early 900s that aren't turbos actually have a different grille. The turbo style grille was brought in, maybe just to sort of simplify things. In fact, a lot of the sort of changes that were made to the 900, 99 and then later the 90 throughout their production life was just to sort of simplify things. Yeah, the offset driving position is really not my favourite. That's not the best. I suppose you get used to it, but there's lots of other cars actually that have it. Just, you know, I'm noticing that today. So yeah, now this is just running a little bit better. The noise when you put your foot down the clutch is a bit weird. Apparently it's quite a common thing for them. There's a really good channel on YouTube I discovered. I think it's called Classic Saab Guy. I do apologise if I got that wrong. I'll put a link to a video in the description below. where the gentleman who, it's an English language channel, but he lives in Sweden and he's got lots of these classic 900s. He goes over some common problems that you get with them. We've only covered a few of them in this video because you know, it's a really good video, and it's better for him who knows about these cars really well rather than me to sort of talk you through. I don't imagine this car's particularly it's got the best 0 to 60 time, but that doesn't really matter. Ride seems pretty good. Just feels like a dependable companion for getting you where you need to go. And I'm very grateful to be offered the opportunity to drive a classic 900. I've been after one of these for some time actually. I didn't quite know it was going to be one of these. I mean, my sort of preference would probably be the later facelifted cars. I think this just look a little bit better. And you know, the later you went on, the sort of more kind of fancy bits they got on them. But I do like this. I just would have to get used to these pedals, I think. Lloyd Vehicle Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below. Let's look now, viewers, at some Saab 900 classic trim levels. The GL like this, the GLS that had the twin carb engine, the GLI that had the injection version of this 8-valve engine initially, and then other trim levels got it too. The SE, that was quite a late one. The Jubilee, I think that was to celebrate Saab's, from memory, 40th birthday of selling cars in this country. The Lux, which is quite a late one. Obviously the Turbo and Turbo S. The Carlson, that had the most powerful engine seen in the classic 900, the 185 brake horsepower engine, which is also with the Turbo Ruby edition. The Aero, I think the Aero was available as a package, some sort of trim levels, but later on it became its own trim level, and they look fantastic actually, the Aeros. Also known as the SPG in North America because of some copyright issue, I think. The XS, and then just the base, there was just a, you know, Saab 900 base after this one. I think the GL was initially the base like this, and then later on it was just called the 900. The CD, or Finlandia, which was a longer wheelbase version of the classic 900. I don't think it was sold actually over here. The GLI Gold and the TG Gofen. I think that's how you say it. There were two special editions at the time of the pre-facelift cars like this. The facelift occurred around 1987. Let's have a look at the 16-valve engines as well, which came in generally starting about 84, and you know, were most common on the facelifted cars. The base engine was a 128 brake horsepower 16-valve injection that sort of replaced eventually the 8-valve injection. That was available from 87 to 93, and from 88 to 90, I think 133 horsepower. I think probably it was pared down because of the upcoming Euro 1 emissions regulations. There was the 16-valve turbo in its base form, which was on itself from 84 to 93, 160 horsepower. The light pressure turbo came in 1990, 143 horsepower, but was available till end of production 93. There was also a 175 brake horsepower version of a 16-valve turbo. I think that was most common in the convertibles, but I could be wrong about that. That came in 88, lasted until 93. And then the Carlson was sold from 89 till 93 as well. As I said, I don't think the 2.1 was actually ever sold over here, but could be wrong. So viewers, should you consider a classic Saab 900, hopefully one where the headlining has been fixed, as a sensible second-hand classic? Well, I quite like this car. The pedals are offset in this right-hand drive example, which is a bit annoying. You've got to get used to that. And this car's not quite running right, which is a bit of a shame. But this car was bought for under £2,000 with an MOT, which is amazing. And it's got, you know, what you consider high mileage, maybe 127,000 miles. But for a classic 900, I don't think that's very much. It depends whether you have this desire to have something really quirky like this, and either you really like it and you really want one, or you don't. I have to say, this driving position does put me off a little bit. It's a real shame, because a lot of the rest of this car I really, really like. And, you know, in comparison with the Morris Minor that Andreas had before, I do prefer this. Although Morris Minors have their place, most certainly, as well. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching this episode of Sensible Secondhand Classics. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and we shall see you again soon for more reasonably priced nostalgic motoring.